or we have to go with Canvas, which many of our peers are doing. So, Matt and Jim?
Thanks for the intro, Alan. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I get a thumbs up if everyone can see this okay. All right, excellent, thanks. So I have a lot of data here, and I'm not going to dive too deeply into all of it because we'd be here all day. But I do want to offer to share this slide deck in case anyone wants to take a deeper dive. I'll be discussing some of our evaluation results so far, comparing Canvas and Blackboard Ultra, and I'll turn things over to Gemma, who will talk more about the technical implementation and some of the challenges and opportunities around that. So you may remember me from a few meetings ago talking about our plans for this. This has been our strategy for evaluating the two learning management systems, Canvas and Blackboard Ultra. So under the umbrella of the LMS evaluation, we have a Canvas pilot where we have a small number of faculty who are teaching in Canvas this semester, and we're also comparing their experiences via our surveys and our research to those who have opted into teaching into Blackboard Ultra this semester as well. That leaves us with 4 groups that we want to get information from, feedback from about their experiences teaching and learning. That's the faculty who have joined our Canvas pilot, their students, the faculty who are teaching in Blackboard Ultra this semester, and their students. So 4 different groups. With those 4 different groups, we're doing 3 different surveys. We had an early semester survey. We just last week wrapped up our mid-semester survey, so these results are hot off the presses, and the end of semester, which we'll do right before finals. So our goal with the early semester survey is to capture the prior experiences of the people taking the survey, some of their initial thoughts about the LMS, what it was like for them getting started, getting prepared to teach, some of their early challenges, and also how easy are different things to do and to accomplish. For our mid-semester survey, which just wrapped up, we're trying to get a sense of how people feel about the functionality of each LMS, the user interface, and satisfaction levels with the different tools. And then when we do our end of semester survey, that will be more for overall impressions, recommendations, which you want to continue using this LMS if you have the choice. We're also planning on doing end of semester focus groups to try to capture some richer and deeper findings than what we can capture from a survey. And again, what we're doing is for our analysis, comparing and contrasting the results from the Canvas groups, faculty and students, with the Ultra groups. So we have our results from the early semester and the mid-semester. Again, mid-semester just closed last week, and end of semester will add to the picture that we have here. So I have a lot of charts and a lot of data to share with you all. I'm not going to dive too deeply into it. These are our response rates. So we begged and pleaded our Canvas pilot faculty to take the feedback surveys. I was hoping for more than a 58% response rate, but it's compared to the other groups, it's quite high. Students who are in the Canvas courses now, 6%, and sort of similar for Blackboard Ultra students and then Blackboard Ultra faculty. Pretty low. This is, I think, enough to capture a representation of the general sentiment around both LMSs. So we asked the faculty members who are in the Blackboard group and the Canvas group about their prior experiences with different LMSs. So interestingly, the folks who are teaching in Canvas now have the least amount of prior experience in Canvas. So they're going at it with fresh eyes. As far as students, these are the results from have you used one of these LMSs either previously at UM or in another context, if you transferred from another institution or from your K-12 experience. Most of the students are coming to us with prior experience in Canvas and a little bit less with Blackboard Classic and Blackboard Ultra. So in terms of our onboarding process, which we're thinking of as getting started, starting the course design process, migrating course materials from their prior LMS to the current LMS. Canvas is rating a little higher for each one of these. Interestingly, the migration experience from Blackboard Classic to Canvas seems to be smoother than from Blackboard Classic to Blackboard Ultra, is something that we're hearing. I'll also say at this point, at the early semester results, I don't think there was a clear winner between Blackboard and Canvas, or at least a clear favorite. I think that picture has changed a little bit now that we have our mid-semester surveys, and we are seeing sort of a tendency toward a preference for Canvas. So I think you'll see that reflected throughout. I'm not going to read all of the different comments, but if you want to take a look at the slide deck, you can see all of the open-ended feedback. This is from the getting started challenges from both the Blackboard faculty group and the Canvas group. We're hearing a lot from the Canvas group that it's different. It takes more of a learning curve than they would have expected, hearing so many good things about Canvas from other folks. Some of the themes that we've identified from the open-ended responses from the Blackboard faculty, they say it's better than the original version, particularly in how it's laid out in the visual organization, but some of it is not as intuitive as they would think. There are some areas where they would want to see some streamlined course management, some features they're finding challenges with. We had some folks want to integrate newer technologies like chatbots and OERs. Not necessarily LMS specific, but this is something that was discussed in the survey results. And then some people had some concern over limitations and just sort of general LMS feelings. From the Canvas group, again, we heard that it was more of a learning curve than they would have expected. Some things are really different from Blackboard to Canvas, like having to publish items in Canvas. It's just a way to make it available for students. One thing that we are consistently hearing about Canvas is it's less customizable than Blackboard Classic and Blackboard Ultra. So some of the features that people have come to get used to, like adding their own graphics on pages and embedding certain text areas in certain aspects of the course, Canvas is much more limited in that regard. We've had some training presented by folks at Instructure, the company that makes Canvas, and we've heard that there might be some room for improvement relative to the training opportunities that are offered by Canvas. I think this is a signal to us that if and when we were to decide to move to Canvas, we probably have kind of a lift to do a lot of that training ourselves. Different areas of navigation, different sorts of setups in the course. Everything on the modules page in Canvas is in one area versus Blackboard. You have more depth with folders and organizing things that way. Notification in Canvas. So Canvas is a little different than Blackboard is, where students can decide how they want to be notified. So maybe I get a digest to my email once a week, or maybe I get an email immediately if I get something graded. So students have a lot of granularity for what kinds of notifications they get, and some faculty members teaching in Canvas find frustration in that because maybe students aren't being notified the way the instructors would want them to because of their individual preferences. Positive reception, people like Canvas. Canvas feels a little more modern and a little more aesthetically pleasing than Blackboard Classic, which feels a little dated. So we've compared the parallel tools from Blackboard and Ultra to get the input from instructors for how they feel about the things that are sort of the same. So in Canvas, the quizzing tool is called quizzes. Tests and quizzes are called quizzes. In Blackboard, they're called tests. So here we have tests and quizzes. We're seeing fairly consistently, with only a couple differences, preference for Canvas over Blackboard. Tests and quizzes is actually one area where Blackboard scores a little bit higher, but fairly consistently through grading, through setting announcements, through setting up rubrics, through setting up content areas and organizing the content into modules, we're seeing Canvas score a little higher. In terms of interacting with the user interface, in terms of it being intuitive and visually appealing, Canvas is scoring higher. What's interesting is Canvas is scoring higher on the ability to customize things, even though what we're hearing in the open-ended feedback is that they're missing some of the ability to customize things. But pretty generally, we're seeing Canvas have higher scores. I'm going to skip through this just for time. Some of the system performance and user interface challenges with Blackboard, we consistently hear that the gradebook is challenging. That both in Ultra and in Classic, and I think maybe even more so in Ultra, people are finding challenges with the gradebook. Editing quizzes and tests, progress tracking, these are the sorts of things that come up with regularity in the open-ended feedback. In terms of Canvas, people are still getting used to navigating Canvas, figuring out how to navigate with the module structure, which is very different, as I said, than from Blackboard Ultra. Limited customizability, even though it scores higher than Blackboard on this. Some people really like SpeedGrader. Some people don't like SpeedGrader. SpeedGrader is in Canvas the grading functionality tool. Generally, people find it more visually appealing than Blackboard 2. Moving over to some student results. Students are consistently rating Canvas higher than Blackboard for things like ease of use, intuitive. Intuitive, we actually define for them in the survey as doing what you need to do without having to consult extra resources or be trained on it. Visual appeal, performance, Canvas is consistently scoring higher. Things that students do commonly, like accessing course materials, communicating with the instructor, with other classmates, checking grades, all of these things, the Canvas group is scoring higher than the Blackboard. Don't have to dive too deeply into these, but if you scroll through these, you're going to see a lot of comments like this: get rid of Blackboard, please. Canvas is amazing. I love Canvas. I love Canvas. I prefer Canvas. And in the Blackboard side, some people love it. Everyone hates Duo. So someone in the Blackboard group said I used Canvas and it's easier to navigate and look into. Again, happy to share the PowerPoint with anyone who wants to see. In terms of Blackboard Ultra, lots of students are saying in the comments that they prefer Canvas because they've used it in other contexts. They think Blackboard's hard to navigate. They don't like the app. Lots of different challenges around Blackboard Ultra. With Canvas, students are saying that it's easier to use, it's more user-friendly. They're mentioning that they've used Canvas in other contexts, so they're familiar with it already. We had some challenges with students in the pilot taking Canvas for one course, taking Blackboard for another course, but we anticipated that. We knew that was going to be the case. It's just how it works when you have a limited pilot. Here's an important question that is important not just for our logistics, but also to get a sense of how people are feeling about Canvas. So we asked people in the Canvas pilot, do you want to continue to use Canvas in the spring? We need to know this so that we can set up their courses, but also it gives us sort of a big picture look at how they feel about it. And 10 out of 24 said that they wanted to continue using it with a couple maybes. Actually, 24 is our total group, sorry. So 10 out of 13 people want to continue. And I'll hand it over to Gemma to talk about some implementation and technical opportunities and challenges.
Thank you, Matt. So hi everyone, it's good to see all of you again. So I do want to just highlight that my team, we've been really focusing on the technical implementation. We've worked to try and align with some of the settings that we have in Blackboard. So this means that we configured Canvas, we have single sign-on, so students can log in with a PIN ID. We have an integration with K-Link, so we get files sent to us on a frequent schedule. So we have the courses created and updated with enrollment. We also supported the migration of requested courses that faculty would like to explore and import that content. We added some third-party integrations, like our large ones such as Zoom, Gradescope, and Respondus. in addition to others that faculty requested. And we also implemented the support and escalation procedures as we're managing both multiple LMSs at this point, and thinking about evaluating and also testing the operational and teaching needs as they come up. So we have been very close to the faculty who have been requesting support and really trying to, if anything, explore what can the system do and not do. So I will highlight a few benefits. So when I'm thinking about benefits and challenges of the migration to Canvas, so I want to put it in this context here. The one thing that has been really powerful is that we do have an extensive community. So we were able to engage very early on, as early as January, if not November of last year, and really kick off discussions with a lot of other higher education institutions and better understand what challenges they have, what's good about Canvas, what's not good about Canvas, what do we have that's better with Blackboard. And so what that has helped, that actually really helped our integration with Kaylee. So we were able to hear a lot of lessons learned, and we were able to implement that in a very short time frame. And we had access to Canvas on July 1st. We were able to get all the courses created by August 1st. So that was a very tight timeline, but it's a testament that the documentation was very clear. The one thing that we did have, we had a small number of courses, and so because of that, we were able to test the process to export content from Blackboard into Canvas. I would say it's around 70 to 80% accurate. A lot of the content came across. What was not surprising was there was some few quirks with assessments. So things like tests or assignments were converted to either tests or tests who didn't pull some question content over. But it's helping us understand what the migration process could look like. There are some new features that, as we are part of this Canvas ecosystem, we get access to Canvas Commons, which is a learning object repository. It's almost like where you could access open educational resources and from multiple educators who have added them to the system. We also get access to Lucid. So Lucid, if you're not familiar, is a diagramming tool. This is, as I believe this year now, an enterprise tool for faculty and students who have access to the system. So once you have access to Canvas, as part of our license, we get access to Lucid Chart and Spark. And it's actually had a feature where you can submit assignments for creating concept maps, diagrams, etc. And so that's something that I know is used heavily in STEM. There are also other features, such as we have access to templates, and we also can embed outcomes now in courses. That is an actual paid feature in Blackboard that is very cumbersome that we've explored. The other benefits I'll highlight are really course templates, and our mobile and offline options actually came really handy during our migration for just remote teaching when the hurricane was potentially hitting Miami. So that was really helpful for us to enable and explore. For the challenges, there will be initial upfront costs. I do want to highlight that not only are we taking on licensing fees, we have to also consider what the fees could be for migrating of content. And we are losing tools such as Blackboard Safer Sign, which is a plagiarism detection tool. So we would need to consider alternatives such as Turnitin. We also have a tool called Ally, which is used in the system right now, and that may also overlap with our current license. That will span at least 2 years. So there will be initial upfront costs, and we're trying to estimate them as much as possible, but there may be some unforeseen costs with that. So there is an increased delay of updates from Kaylee. So right now, our integration with Blackboard, anytime an enrollment change happens in Kaylee, it updates to Blackboard within 15 minutes. Right now, it's only 2 hours. This is actually the standard across other higher education institutions, which was a big surprise for us. So that is a challenge that we have been trying to establish how we could improve that. Another kind of red flag for us is that there's no out-of-the-box option to export courses with student data and course materials. So Blackboard currently has that feature, so we can archive course content, faculty can take the content, they can keep it for student records. That it would require additional licensing or other manual processes. So Canvas is exploring their own internal option, but it's very much the discovery stage. As Matt suggested, there is an unclear roadmap for the new quiz tool. So that has been something that we are a little bit concerned about. They're missing some core features such as item analysis, bulk editing of questions. And we currently have 2 quiz platforms operating now in Canvas just to see what faculty are using more. I can tell you that is causing confusion. So we would need to make a decision to use one versus the other. if we migrate. And the support structure, I would say, it's been pretty consistent. My team, we work with vendors on a daily basis, and the current 24/7 and tier support does require continuous escalation from my internal team. We've had more tickets come to my internal team than the 24/7 support. So we're seeing how we can optimize that for future. And I'll just highlight, because I want to be mindful of time, for Ultra. So in the opposite, as we're talking of support, that is something that we have a really strong client relationship with Blackboard. We attend weekly office hours. We're able to push back on a lot of the changes that they suggest. They're very transparent about their product development roadmap. We can see very understanding, like if a faculty member has requested something now, we will be able to give an answer. This may be coming in 3 to 6 months. So that is something that's been a really powerful tool from Blackboard. If we migrate to Ultra, there are new Ultra-only features. So I will highlight the AI Design Assistant, which is embedded in Ultra, allows faculty to create tests, rubrics, course content, images. There is also a new conversation tool that almost is a chatbot that's embedded within as an assessment tool that allows faculty to create a role play assignment using AI. And there's also a drag and drop interface, very similar to authoring tools. There are multiple bulk migration tools as well. That is currently that we're leveraging on a basis. And the ability now that faculty can actually, if they're teaching an Ultra, they can import content directly from original. And as Matt had mentioned before, there's extensive more customization options. There is a downside to that. Many options means many workflows and not as intuitive. So I think with the challenges, I'll just wrap up here that there will be some initial upfront costs. We are migrating to a new system. As Matt had said, a lot of the feedback we had heard was about training. So training is one thing that faculty really would like to understand and know how to migrate content to Ultra. So that is something that will be a challenge and potentially beyond our professional services. The test tool has been used for a number of semesters, but they do lack some core features from originals, such as the ability to bulk edit test questions, so the points of test questions. If you have a bank of 100 questions, that's a problem. While there is a lot of product development in Ultra, they do add a lot of value, but they sometimes can cause confusion and they can create bugs. And so that's something that we are aware of. Those known issues have decreased, but that's an expectation if we migrate a lot more courses. One of the challenges that Matt highlighted was that faculty are frustrated with the ability of having to request Ultra. Right now, courses can only be automatically created in one course experience, so that means original or Ultra. Anything else does require more scripting or manual intervention, and that's something we're partnering with Blackboard on now. And the one thing that I think some of you might have been aware, we have been seeing performance issues right now at peak usage times for large classes in Safer Zone. Blackboard is addressing that in the next month, but that is something that I would like to highlight to the group. And I think the only thing that I do want to hear is just share an inventory. We often get asked, well, who's actually using Canvas? Who's actually using Blackboard? And so, we're referring to the US News rankings just for national, not global. So will highlight that around 76% of institutions, of the top 78, are using Canvas. 10% are using Blackboard, in addition to D2L, Brightspace, that are using 10% there, and 4% are using Moodle. There is a large body of institutions that are using Canvas, and so that's just something, and I have highlighted here that folks like from Stanford, Northwestern, Boston College, similar in size and enrollment, undergraduate enrollment, are the ones that are using Canvas. And I think that's it from me, so I do want to pause and hand it off to Matt, or if anyone has any questions or clarifications, because that was a lot of information.
Yeah, we threw a lot at you, so if there's any questions, we're happy to address them. And yes, we will share a PDF of the slides for anyone who wants.
That was the question I wanted to begin with. There's a lot of information here. It's very interesting for us, and I think people would like to reflect on it a bit. So if you can share that Power Deck with us, we would love to look at that a bit more. But let's open this up to comments. Is anybody surprised by these findings or want to add reflection to those findings? They're low response rates, but it does seem like the patterns are pretty clear. Yeah, Tom, why don't you begin?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you. I've got a number of questions. One of which is that it looks like most of you had 76% have gone with Canvas, but I don't know who owns Canvas and who owns Blackboard, because the minute that they have a monopoly, those prices are going to go up dramatically. Right now, I think that Blackboard's a little cheaper, but going forward, if almost all the institutions go with Canvas and they're owned by a private equity group, the private equity group are going to try to capture their monopoly with extra prices, and I'm not sure we've taken that into account. I would like to know more about the integration of Turnitin with Canvas and the Safe Assign with Blackboard. But the Safe Assign works very well with Blackboard, and it allows me anyway to avoid the AI responses to the assignments that I would otherwise have. I require that the students use Safe Assign and that they have a zero, that it's all their work rather than somebody else. And I don't know whether that will be possible to easily integrate that with Canvas. That is the Turnitin with Canvas. I just don't know. I'd like to know more about that. And again, I would like to know who owns those two entities and what their expectation in terms of the cash flow is going to be. I don't know much about the learning curve. It looks like the learning curve. I was worried about one thing going forward here, and that is right now I'm able to use old courses, and particularly a whole set of old videos that I have created with great that's taken me a lot of time to do, and I didn't get the sense. I wasn't sure whether under Canvas or Ultra it would be easier to upgrade to roll those over to new courses. In particular, the videos, which are seamlessly integrated with my Blackboard courses now. I have no idea whether that's going to be possible to do with the Canvas course. Can you speak to those questions?
Yes, I'll try to speak to all three of those, and if I miss anything, Gemma or Alan, feel free to jump in. Blackboard is owned by a company called Anthology, which is an educational technology company. They acquired Blackboard. I think now it's been a few years. So they're owned by an educational technology company that makes other technology products for sort of enrollment management and things like that. Instructure was acquired by a global investment firm earlier this year. We don't have any indication what that means for the product so far. Nothing has changed that we know of. It is something on our radar. It's something that we're paying attention to.
Which global investment firm?
KKR.
So I'm going to give Matt a chance to get to each of your questions, Tom, and then I want to make sure other people have a chance to ask questions before we move on to Dacia.
Your second question was about Safe Assign. Safe Assign is a Blackboard product, so if we move away from Blackboard, we'll be moving away from Safe Assign. Canvas doesn't have the same sort of thing built into it, a plagiarism detection tool built into it, so Safe Assign is baked into Blackboard. Canvas doesn't have something similar. So we'd have to look to another product to integrate with Canvas. The most likely contender is going to be Turnitin, which is the market leader in plagiarism detection tools. So that would be seamlessly integrated into Canvas if we were to acquire a license for it. And it would probably be more or less fairly similar to your experience with Safe Assign. In fact, I think its functionality is actually quite a bit deeper in terms of plagiarism detection and all of that. So yeah, that should be fairly seamless if we go that direction. Your third question about your videos, I don't know where your videos are hosted. We certainly suggest that everyone hosts their video content in Kaltura, which is the university's preferred video hosting tool that we're using, and those are very easy to just move from Blackboard into Canvas. Since it's independent of Canvas or Blackboard, it's its own system where you can embed the videos into the other elements. So that's, if you have your videos in Kaltura, it shouldn't be a problem. If you have them somewhere else, we'd have to explore it.
So thanks very much, Matt. Do other people have questions or reflections on the results so far? Is anyone surprised by the trends that we're seeing?
So I can comment on next steps after there are questions. I see Michelle had her hand up.
Michelle, and then we'll go to your next steps, and then we'll move on to
I
Daisy.
think you're about to answer my question, which is basically what's the next step?
What a perfect setup. It's almost like we planned this. No, so I just talked to Joan L. Newman yesterday. They do want us to present this to the Academic Services Committee, which is hosted by Dennis Hector. And then from there, it would be reviewed. We'd present the same kind of data. We'd want the end of semester data as well, so we have that full thing. And then from there, it will go to Faculty Senate. Faculty Senate will vote on their recommendation for what we should do. Now, I still need CIO approval to make sure that the contracts aren't going to be a problem, provost approval just to make sure that we have his blessing. But if it seems like those three are lining up in one direction or the other, that's fine. But I can tell you that no decision has been made. There are pros and cons to both sides. And I just want to go with what the faculty want to do because they are impacted by this on a daily basis.
We have a question from John before we move on. We can't hear you. I don't know why. Yeah. You want to type it in the chat? Because I see you've unmuted, but we can't hear you. So why don't you type your question in the chat and I'll say it.
How about now?
Yep, we can hear you now. Thanks.
It says acting up. Just a quick question. As far as the results that were listed, I'm, just in case anyone doesn't know, I'm actually working with you online as far as the development for those courses. With the information that was given, were there any students that were, or faculty that were coming directly from you online that spoke of this? Because we're one of the groups that actually, pretty much every course that we have is running an ultra. So it would be low to actually move these courses back over to Canvas. Myself, having gone through about 8 of these different migrations over the years, it's going to be wonderful. So I was wondering, do we have any data from the usage of the of like you online or anything else in these? So that, I could see that.
We were very much hoping that we would have some new online courses involved in the pilot. A challenge is that a lot of those are part of fully online degree programs, and in those programs, you don't necessarily want to throw a different LMS at folks to sort of interrupt the flow of their program. Gemma, do you recall if we have any fully online courses in the pilot?
So I believe that we had one, but the faculty opted out. So the faculty opted out to use that with that online course in Canvas, and they used a in-person course. So that was very close to the semester that change was made. We didn't have any other. I believe we had very limited applications for either online faculty who wanted to teach online. So and a number. I think one of the challenges, again, as Matt said, we had a number of folks who were interested in teaching in Canvas, but once they realized the implications that this could disrupt their students who are teaching online, then an application was not submitted. So that was one aspect. I will highlight on the Blackboard Ultra side, yes, it's entirely possible we targeted online courses. So all of the surveys that were from, were pulling any students and faculty that were teaching, that were in a course for this full semester, mind you, not last semester. Or before then. So yes, it's entirely possible that we were targeting online courses on the Ultra side.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Of course.
So I would just add, I previously taught you online class for school communication It was in the original Blackboard, but I've also taught on Ultra and now on Canvas. And I could say from someone directly experiencing it, everything's been going really well with Canvas compared to both versions of Blackboard. So just putting that in there.
Good to know. It's useful to have that recognition that we'd want to think about those courses as well.
I know this took up a lot of this meeting, but this is a very important thing for impacting faculty life. So I want to make sure that it got your full attention and we're being as transparent as we can about the data and that sort of thing. So, you know, for us to move, Canvas has to be better than Blackboard Ultra. If they're about the same, then Blackboard Ultra is the kind of default choice, but if there's a significant reason to move to Canvas, then we should move to Canvas. And even though that's more work for my team, you know, that's the work that we would have to put in to end up in a better space long term. But again, I'm not going to make that decision. I really want all of your voices to be heard.
Well, I want to commend Matt, Gemma, and Alan and others for doing a lot of the research to give us a sense of people's experiences, and I'm very glad that you're going to be talking with a lot of people in Faculty Senate. I'm going to encourage this committee to talk to faculty within your own schools and colleges to see if there are any particular experiences or kinds of teaching that you would want us to be aware of, so we can also be a voice for Alan in thinking through these different choices. So we can talk about that again in December. So yeah, as you're talking to your own faculties, if there are particular kinds of teaching or examples, I know some of the issues that some of us have to do with high quality video, and that's having to do with websites and other issues. But we will revisit this topic again in December. So thank you very much, Matt and Gemma, for joining us for this today. Thanks for sharing your research, and we look forward to getting that PowerPoint slide deck from you. We wanted to also give you time in this committee meeting today to get an update on Classrooms of the Future. We know that this is a very important initiative for the university overall and has a lot of implications for those of us at the school and college level. So, Daisy, do you want to tell us how things are going?
Daisy, I saw your lips moving, but you're muted.
Are you seeing my screen now?
Yes, gotcha.
Awesome. All right, so Classroom of the Future. I know there are some folks on this committee that we had spoken to back in 2021 about Classroom of the Future. It was, programmed out of the provost office, where it was on the basis of SACS QEP related and coming out of COVID. So think of that in the nutshell. We learn a lot about teaching online, teaching hybrid, teaching in person, coming out of COVID. The committee consists of administrative committee, Alan, myself, someone from facilities, Alex Magdanara, and then we had faculty representatives from the schools. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of overview so you understand what Classroom of the Future is and what we did from a data standpoint, and then the discussions that really formulate what I'm about to show you today. So we did a survey in spring 21 to all faculty. 413 faculty responded, and the results were to compare their teaching modes between before the pandemic, and we saw that faculty interest increased with teaching blended, flipped, and online formats. Faculty were highly interested in technology and just more flexible space that worked where they could go around and speak to their students in different active groups while they were teaching. They talked about writing spaces, which I know that especially for the math faculty, this has been a pain point for them for years. And then we also did a focus group, and we did a focus group with faculty and students. We had 29 faculty, we had 12 students, and it was a little bit different with student results versus faculty. Again, they wanted flexible furniture. Students wanted flexible furniture. Faculty were more interested in technology. Students didn't really care for the technology, to be honest with you. Students wanted more lighting and They actually wanted more natural lighting. That's what came out of those discussions. Whereas and electrical outlets was like the consensus between faculty and students. They really wanted more electrical outlets when we, renovated spaces. Students wanted more, and this I think solidified coming out of COVID. They wanted more writing surface space, but they didn't want to share it with other students. They wanted their own little desk and own little chair, but can fit their tablet and their notebook, and even some said they wanted their phone and their iPads to also be able to fit on the writing surface. So that's in a nutshell like what the discussions and the surveys were formulated around. And at the end of spring 21, we developed a programming. We identified several classes across the campus. We developed budgetary and designs through what was coming out of the committee. So this is the results of, say, spring 21 discussions where faculty really decided how they would like to teach. And we kept in mind through those designs what students also said in their focus group. So the first space that we're going to see is it was an office space before, and we actually turned it into an active learning space. So there is monitors surrounding the entire walls with writing spaces. So the faculty is not the center of the classroom per se, but the students would be doing active learning, assignments, and they have the monitors. Each monitor can be assigned to each table set that you see in the picture. But the faculty has full control to present, let's say, table one, what they're presenting to all the monitors. So that is the first. It is actually a really nice space. If you have time, please go and look at it, explore the technology. Feedback is always something that I really appreciate. I'm not teaching in the space, you are, so that's one of the things that I always tell faculty. And the spin-off of this space was the lobby area. So you'll see the before students study there. There's events that happen there, but actually there's some teaching that could have happened there. So we did a design where it was a mixed-use space. The furniture is movable. You can move everything out of the space, but the technology that's there allows, it is a sign-up, so that allows the faculty to use a monitor and can teach right in the lobby area. So that was one of the reasons why we did this space, because we've seen faculty now actually holding office hours out there. We've seen students preparing for presentations in the lobby area. So it is really an active space, and we had to show you the mock-up of the space because the students are still in the space. Every time we go to find a sweet spot to take a photo, never works for us. Someone is sitting there, and we don't want to disrupt anyone. And then there is the auditorium, and I'll just speak really briefly about the auditorium. The design has not changed in this auditorium, and it will be really hard to change the design because it also has a basement underneath. So even if we wanted to be creative with the design, it will be a challenge to flatten the space and make it an active learning auditorium. However, one of the feedback that came out of it from faculty and students was, if you notice, there's monitors throughout the space now. There were none before. So students sitting, off to the left or the right, or even to the very back of the space, felt like they were excluded from the teaching experience that a student that's sitting closer to the front would have. We have ceiling microphones also, so the students can actually, if there's a remote learner or a guest speaker, they can actually hear what the students in the classroom are saying instead of the faculty repeating the question at the front of the podium. And this is the same design. Dooley Memorial, there were several rooms that were done similar to this layout that you're seeing. The before was a structured lecture style. now this has the tables that the students prefer. It's giving them more writing surface. It actually allows the faculty to have more active discussions because we can group them in real quick into a group setting and have discussions and, put it back to a lecture style after. One of the challenges that we have with these spaces, if a faculty member goes in, we knew that going in to these design, it's confirmed now that we're in our slew of our semesters with it. If a faculty A goes in and teach and does not put back the classroom to a setting that's, preferred for the next faculty following, that's when we get emails saying, the room was not laid out the way I needed it to be. So we are encouraging faculty to just kind of, if you put group setting, just put it back to a lecture style for the next faculty so that they can also teach how they want to teach. We upgraded the boards from the regular whiteboards that we used to have to glass boards. What we found over the years, the glass boards are more durable. They don't ghost. It's easier to clean. We've had to, in the past, figure out how to clean off permanent marker. Sometimes a faculty member may have a permanent marker in their hand and not realize and then write on the board, unconsciously that they're, and it messes up the board. So now we are able to clean the surfaces a little bit better and maintain them. You're seeing one-sided view of this room, but to the back, there is also boards at the back. That's one thing that did come out of the survey for students and also faculty. This is another space that we had in the Merrick building, and we also created active learning. We used a different type of furniture that would still keep our capacity intact. So we have to also be thinking about that when we're doing these designs. How can we maximize the capacity that was in the space? Because when we go in and renovate these spaces, we're losing a large amount of capacity just because of the layouts. And the standard that we have now is not the standard we have 12 years ago. It also has upgraded technology. This space, as you can see in the before picture, it only had a monitor and a laptop for faculty to teach. Now they have a full technology slew. They have document camera, they have the projector screen. They also have the ceiling microphone, so if a faculty has a guest speaker or remote learner, they also have the opportunity to be participants of the room in a seamless way. This is the other room next door to it. I just wanted to show you, and this is the same furniture, but I just wanted to show you a different type of layout that is possible in the space. And then another room in Merrick, the students actually liked this format, and when we spoke with the committee, they also liked this format, the U shape. So we did put it back, but we made sure that if you look to the right, where the triangle is at the in the after photo, there's a ADA table that is standard in all upgrades now because we need to ensure that we think of our ADA students. And in the focus group, students stress that the most. What about our students that are need accommodation? How are you thinking about them? So that is one way of us making sure that this becomes a standard that we can facilitate. It actually has another table beside it that is seamless to the layout that can be adjustable as well, but it's a smaller footprint than the steel case ear touch that you're seeing in the very picture. Again, full boards to the front, full boards to the back. The difference in this photo is that we have an interactive board instead of a projector screen. That's the only difference. I teach in that space right now, and I find that the students that are sitting to the left have a line of sight issue. So I've already put in a request for 2 monitors to be installed to the very left where the windows are, and across from it, the opposite side wall. So that will be rectified, but feedback is great. And I checked with other faculty that are teaching in the space, and that was one of the main feedback that came back from this particular design. This room does not have electrical outlets in the space either. So we are actually looking at that and see if we can address that for the students. One of the other things that I observed, again, teaching in this space, is the AC unit. The air handler is right over one student's head, and it's so loud right there. So I'm going to see if I can work with facilities to see what we can do to address that noise disruption. This is another space that needed bad upgrade. it needed upgrade to the point where when we went into the space, we end up had to change the flooring. We had to change the ceiling tiles because the ceiling tile was not, it was so old that if we remove it, we'd have to remove all the ceiling tiles all at once. So this room got a full upgrade at the end, but it was really just AV and boards that were approved, and it ended up getting a full upgrade just because of the things that we ran into going into renovating the space. And this is a room next door to it, just showing you a different view. And then Shoma. Shoma was the the heavy lifting of this project, and it's still in the works, but I wanted to kind of show you how we look at spaces when we go into a project. It was only upgraded for electrical outlets for the students originally under the original Classroom of the Future project, and the interactive board that will project to, if they write on the board, it will project to the projector screen. When we went into this space, we identified that in order to achieve the electrical outlets for the students, we'd have to upgrade the seating. And when we assessed it, the seatings are in need of upgrading anyways. So we took the time to really transform this space to the mock-up that you're going to see. Hopefully this summer, we will have the full green light to go and renovate the space. So this is what it will look like. It will have tiered seating, so we'll be flattening the space where 2 rows will be on the same level. And the AV will be similar. We talked about the acoustics in the room. We talked about the ceiling microphones. We talked about if we're having conferences in the space, because we know that the School of Communication does a lot of events in this particular room. So we made sure we look at all aspects. If you have a guest speaker that's remote, how is that going to work versus a group of students that is remote? We looked at the interaction of if the students come in and do an active learning, assignment, how will that look in a large space? This is the first mock-up, but behind each student, there will be like a dry erase board that they can actually go into a group, write on, present, talk about it, and that's giving the students the opportunity to collaborate with their peers, but also give the faculty the opportunity to walk freely through the space and interact with each group. So we thought of it in a lot of ways. We talked about our ADA students again. So the front of the room will have a little bit more flexible furniture so that if a student is sitting there that is in a wheelchair, they can spin around real easy and interact with the table behind them. So we don't want them to feel like, okay, well, I'm stationed at the front and I can't interact with my peers. So we thought of as much as we can with this space, and I'm eager to see what it will, the outcome will be at the end of summer, crossing our fingers, because we have the permitting request to the city right now, and we're waiting on their approval. But it's in the works. So this is the only room from that original Classroom of the Future proposal that was not achieved, but it will be achieved hopefully by summer. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I do want to say that we very much appreciated the process of having identified that Shoma room as one of them, and this was a few years ago. I think it was the first time I met you, Alan, a few years ago. We talked about that specific room. And it's been a good process going from, okay, first we want electrical outlets to a bigger set of issues. How can we integrate the technology in a way that works for emerging needs in our pedagogical approaches to the seating? And I know things come up, are we reducing the number of seats in the room? We need to for a variety of reasons. How will that affect the way we plan classes? All of those things I very much appreciate that we've been able to discuss across our different units. I think the biggest question that a lot of us have, and I'm going to paraphrase things that are in the chat, we're very excited about these renovations. We all really want to be able to integrate these technologies into the way that we teach for a variety of reasons and purposes. What happens next? We have questions about the Unger classrooms, Rosenstiel, and I'll tell you that one of our most popular classes, which is the Branding Genius of Taylor Swift, is in the Witten Learning Center. Part of that class is students posting on social media, and when things break in that room, they're posting on social media about our classrooms breaking. So we all want to move forward with the beauty of these integrative technologies and these rooms that work for a variety of purposes. So for our standpoint, tell us what happens in the next year, the next couple of years, because a lot of us that I'm seeing in the chat would love to be able to be part of this.
So I think we brought it up because we are going to do Classroom of the Future 2.0, right? It is time. It's time for us to have that active learning discussions with faculty. So I'm going to hand it over to Alan for him to finish.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, yeah.
Daisy and I have been hand in hand with this kind of stuff from the beginning because we bring completely different perspectives on this. We also partner with Maria Galli Stampino and Miriam Lipsky this year because she's now in charge of the Platform for Excellence in Teaching and Learning. And, we got Kathy Kern's blessing and then somebody from facilities, Alex McNamara. And so then we'll have the same kind of format we had last time, which is schools will be invited to have a faculty participant. We'll have extras from faculty senate. But I think the first thing we want to do is talk to the students and the faculty who've been teaching in those new spaces and say, what is working for you? What isn't working for you? What else would you like to see? And then we can find out what the biggest return on investment are, and then make sure that those get propagated out to the other spaces. There is a teaching strategy document I've seen that says all classrooms should be renovated by 2029. I don't know if we can meet that kind of aggressive timeline because sometimes with permitting and actual like physical room changes, you run into certain limits. But certainly we should have a concept of a plan relatively soon if we want to even get close to that goal. So again, finding out what's working with the rooms that have been changed, figuring out what is a worthwhile investment. Because I can tell you things like glass whiteboards, they last a really long time. They're easier to maintain and they're not expensive compared to like an AV system change. And, big benefit for people who want students to diagram things or write concept maps or, do engineering type problems or solve equations or something. So that's kind of what we want to encourage.
And one of the things that we have done a great job of since, renovating these spaces, we go in and look at the lighting. Lighting makes a difference. So we've been actually replacing the ceiling tiles along with the lighting to fit the design of the space. We have looked at the flooring, right? We renovated a room, side note, in Cox 217, and it's more of a lab type learning space, but we had to look at the acoustics because that building tend to draw a lot of acoustical issues. So we had to find the right flooring for their needs, but at the same time thinking of the acoustics that are a challenge in those spaces. Sometimes when we go into the space, we have a building right now that it's renovated, a couple of years ago, but it has an air conditioned noise that is disruptive to faculty, and that costs a lot of money to replace an entire building's air conditioning unit. So then we get back those feedback, and from a scheduling standpoint, I'm like, okay, where do I put the faculty if this is the only room that's available, but it has this one challenge? So by us collaborating across the platform, we're able to tell facilities, okay, when you're renovating spaces or upgrading buildings, think of these things because faculty are saying these things to us when we do the scheduling. So it's great that I handle the classrooms at the same time handle the scheduling, because when they say I want to swap spaces, but why? And I get that email and I use that information as a part of the focus group information and the survey. So I always ask faculty to send me feedback on why they don't like a space, because then we keep that in mind. And that's part of the reason why I'm able to say the Promethean board is great in the Merrick room and it works for what it needs to and the type of classes that are assigned there. But then the line of sight is an issue. So we're going to address it. But we're learning through these classroom of the future designs to say we didn't get it perfect, but give us your feedback. How do we help you teach in the best environment? And sometimes I'll walk around and ask students, how did you feel about this classroom today? Because the students, their experience is also important. So I say this to say we need to have a plan for renovation. So, yes, it's a bold to have all classrooms upgraded by 2029. But as long as we know what we want to achieve, then we can work towards it, but we need your help to get the data that we need to design these spaces. And then we'll work with leadership to secure funding, because that's what we have to do. If we don't get the funding, we can't upgrade, right? But if leadership is supportive of the mission, then, I don't see it as a problem.
Nancy, would you be willing to prioritize people using the new spaces who are willing to give the feedback in real time about how it's working and not just assign it at random?
I am. And because that's the only way I'm going to be able to get the right information. I know I have one challenge with some classes because everyone wants to teach on a Tuesday, Thursday at these particular times, and that's where my challenge comes in from a scheduling standpoint. So as long as we know what rooms we are grouping together and say these are the information gathering rooms, then we just have to do what we have to do. That's the only way we're going to get the information. I'm not too fond of surveys. I know they work, but when you talk to a faculty at the moment they're having that experience, is totally different feedback.
I appreciate that you talk to students as well, and I'll offer the services of this committee. If there's specific rooms or technologies that you want to learn more about, all of us are happy to go back and talk to faculty and come back here and provide some consultation or reflection on potentially new plans. It's helpful to hear what the students are liking and what's working well in terms of the boards as well as the microphones and so forth.
And just to add, Witten Learning Center is not so great layout for anyone. Students don't like it, faculty don't like it. We can't put ADA faculty in the space, so that's a big challenge. And then the students that are being accommodated, they're sitting at the very back in a large room, so they don't get the same value out of the class as a student sitting closer to the faculty in the front. So those are the things those auditorium layouts, and then the smaller auditorium style spaces in the LC still don't work because they're so close together. There's no space for you to kind of breathe, if that's the right way to say it. And students have said to me, well, if I drop my phone or my pencil, it's going to roll to the front of the room. So the slope doesn't work for anyone. They don't like it. It pushes them, because of the furniture, after a while, the wear and tear of the nuts and bolts, it pushes the student when they're sitting in the seat towards the table. So they have to keep pressing their foot on the ground to kind of have like a little bit more comfortable seating for their class, and they don't like that. So we know of the issues. but the LC is a big overhaul, and I think it would be better for us to knock down the space, in my opinion, than to renovate that space. It has a lot of things that we would have to, reimagine if we're going to do it the right way.
And I'll add that we've actually talked to University of Miami staff in other areas about that particular building and determined that it would be cheaper to knock it down and build a new one than to make it
Functional,
a functional
today.
space. And so I'll just add that as the university is thinking through priorities, being ADA compliant, being able to service a student no matter what their abilities, I think that needs to be important to the prioritization of the spaces. It's the ethics.
We're achieving it where we can, but we also, my scheduling team and I keep a list of the faculty and know where they are sitting to ensure that we're putting them in the right space that's gonna, be accommodating to their needs. But
it's complicated.
It's complicated. From a scheduling standpoint, it is. It's worse when students change their schedule, because then we have to change everybody else's schedule to accommodate where they need to be seated. So that's where we have most of the challenge, not so much the ADA faculty.
Well, I do want to thank Alan for bringing this to our attention as a committee here. I think that's really wonderful that we get a chance to hear about how things are going and to see the visuals. We're going to be wrapping up in a few minutes. Does anybody else want to comment on the classrooms of the future?
I think it's going in the right direction. I like most of what I saw. I'm a little skeptical about turning a foyer into a classroom because it can get a little boisterous, but the other stuff looks great. The only thing I would add, and I put it in the chat, is that the distributed monitors in larger spaces are definitely used by the students, and they appreciate it.
Yes.
What I have noticed is that when a classroom itself is less densely attended, for whatever reason, maybe because the size versus the number of students, maybe because some of them are doing it remotely, they tend to distribute themselves through the room away from the front of the room. They interact with me less. They interact with each other more. I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying it's different, but it makes for a very different classroom experience.
Agreed.
Bringing folks together forward or pointed in the same direction sometimes is useful, and that seems to work counter to that. But the rest of it seems to be cool, in my opinion.
And I'll add some of the comments from the chat. No more carpeting, please. And if we're able to do more in rose and steel in terms of remote learning, that'll help people attend classes, particularly if the classrooms are adequate. So
that's pretty much it. We constantly struggle on whether to offer classes on the Rose Steel campus at the undergraduate level, and it's always a struggle. Like, how do you bus them there? Is it going to mess up their entire schedule?
Yeah.
So it puts a burden on either the faculty or the students and limits the offering. So if there are classrooms that are adequate for hybrid type learning, that would be excellent.
Okay, I will send you the list of rooms that can accommodate that, so we can work through that and then learn what the experience is.
So it would be renovated classrooms on the marine science campus.
Yes.
We'd be able to, and I don't know that we have those, but we can work with that.
Brian House is currently our assistant dean for infrastructure.
Okay. I'll make a connection with them so that we could evaluate, see where we.
Yep.
Well, and a lot of what we've been talking about calls for integration and attention to online teaching. And I know Kathy's part of this, and we'll be talking to this committee as well in a future meeting. So thank you so much for being part of this committee meeting today. A reminder that our next meeting will be in person. And again, that'll be December 5th, 2 o'clock in the communication school. Yeah.
One more question for Alan. Will the guest lecturers talk be streamed tomorrow?
No.
No, it has to be in person.
So tomorrow's thing will be in person, not live stream. So I'm going to conclude the committee meeting. I know a lot of people have other things at 2:30. I am going to ask a question if anybody wants to be part of this. With websites and moving images, and it's come to my attention that there are just two of us schools that are having some issues with high definition media rendering correctly when people are outside the UM network. What would be our next steps with addressing that?
So I think the network team is looking into that now.
Okay.
Started to update about that. Between the time you and I spoke for the pre-meeting of this, they said they were going to talk to a company that manages our external firewalls, and then I think they're going to follow up with it's the School of Comm and Rosensteel School.
Yeah, we're the two schools that I've heard of so far. I don't know if other schools are having issues. Okay, thank you. Thanks very much.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Happy Halloween.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Happy Halloween.
Yeah. Hence the hat.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.